Thank you, Heidi. Heidi is a great friend, and I follow her on Facebook to keep up with her life, but she's more than a Facebook friend. She's a real friend. I think one of the great things that the Tallahassee Chamber does is create opportunities like this for new relationships to form and new friendships to form. We don't want to be those people who have 1,000 friends on Facebook and nobody to call when the car breaks down. So it's our success is really the people that we know and the people who will support us, both in our careers and our families. It's a great time to be a professional woman, don't you think? We have never had more opportunities available to us. I think women have proven that there is not a role that we can't fulfill. There is not a post that we can't succeed at. I'm so grateful that I don't feel like I'm stuck in a Mad Men episode every day when I get up. And that's thanks to so many pioneering women who pushed the barriers and pushed the boundaries and proved what women could do. And we can't be complacent about that. I think we all need to have our guard up and make sure that we are working in our own time and our own lives to make things better for women and for families everywhere, and to continue to create opportunities for women. Some would say, let's see if I can get that to work. Some would say that that I have it all. That phrase, women want to have it all. I have had a career for the past, 29 years. I started in state government, as Heidi said. I was the communication director for 4 government agencies, and for the past 15 years, I've had the privilege of building Ron Sachs Communications and now Sachs Media Group with Ron and the great team that we have there. And it's been a real adventure, because at the same time that I was doing that, I was starring in my own version of the Brady Bunch. To give you just a little bit about my credentials to speak about work-life balance, I first became a working mother when I was 24 and adopted my first child, my daughter, who was 5 at the time. And then my son, who's here today, was born 4 years later, and I experienced the exquisite pain of leaving an infant to go back to work, which is like leaving your heart in somebody else's care. And then I was divorced and was a single mom in the workplace for the next 5 years, and then met my husband, Matt Ubben, who was widowed with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we put that family together and instantly became a family of 4, and then had 2 more children together. So that's how we became the Brady Bunch. We're kind of like Texas. We're just bigger and more extreme, and everything costs more. But it was never a consideration for me to stop working, partly because I was really in the full throes of my career by then and was accomplishing things that mattered to me. But also 6 kids are expensive. So, in preparing for this speech, I read a lot of material, and I looked at what a lot of other women had to say, and saw a very interesting video of Pat Schroeder, a congresswoman from Colorado, who really accomplished a lot for women. When she showed up in Congress in 1972, they tried to swear in her husband. But she said in that interview that she didn't realize that what she had been working for all those years was the right for women to hold 2 full-time jobs. And it does seem that a lot of the time. Just the fact that we can do anything doesn't mean that we want to do everything. I wouldn't think by this point in our history that work-life balance would still be a controversial topic, but I found that it is. I read an interview with Hillary Clinton in Marie Claire magazine in which she said she's tired of the having it all debate and can't stand the kind of whining that people fall into when they don't like the choices they've made. And she also said that she sees women who don't break a sweat. They have 4 or 5 or 6 kids, they're highly organized, they have supportive networks. Well, let me say, I break a sweat every day trying to make all this work, and those of you who have kids, I'm sure, do as well. I have a lot of respect for Hillary Clinton, but we don't do anybody any favors when we gloss over how much women have on their plate and how hard this is to manage. Which takes us to the topic of today's talk. I'm sure many of you have either read or certainly heard about the best-selling book, Lean In, by Sheryl Sandberg, the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook. She has created a dialogue about why women have not broken through to the top ranks of leadership in government and in the private sector that you would expect by now. And she attributes it in part to what she calls an ambition gap. We're just not working hard enough at this. We're not leaning into our careers. She calls it leaving before you leave, that even before we have children, we're taking ourselves out of competition because we can see down the road and know what it is that we want. It almost seems to me that we create pressure on women to feel like they're selling out the cause if we don't embrace our careers at the expense of everything else. And I think that's a little unfortunate. I think a lot of what she's doing is important, but I also think that we need voices in favor of balance, which I think so many of us as working mothers want. I saw a great quote in preparing for this speech that working mothers should eat their children, simultaneously solving the problem of childcare and what to make for dinner. The choices really do feel that impossible some days, and yet I know that I'm not alone in valuing work-life balance because a recent LinkedIn poll showed that women consider work-life balance the number one measurement of success in career, more important than title, more important than salary, although those things are important too. And when that poll looked at Florida women specifically, they found that an overwhelming majority believed that they could have it all, that we're confident this can occur. I thought it was particularly interesting that women without children were the most optimistic of all. They said that they didn't believe they would slow down their career at all once the kids came along. I'll tell you a little story. The first week that I went back to work full-time after my daughter Grace was born, we had a client group flying in from out of state. And if we landed this account, it was to be the biggest account the firm had, and I was to be the lead on it. So it was one of those days that you can't not be at work. It was Grace's first day back in daycare, or first day in daycare full-time. And she woke up that morning with sniffles, but no fever, nothing serious, nothing that caused me any alarm. I took her to Creative Preschool. How many Creative Preschool fans do we have down here? And went and focused on our very important meeting. And by the middle of the day, I got a call from preschool that she was running a fever and I needed to come get her. So I ran and got Grace. I brought her to my mom's house. And thank God for my mom, because there were so many things that wouldn't have worked for the last 29 years without her. Went back for my afternoon of meetings, and of course my mind was a little bit on the baby. And as soon as I could, I ran home to find my mom in a rocking chair, rocking her, and said, "You better take her to the doctor. She seems listless today." So I start panicking. We go to urgent care, Capital Health Plan, and they gave her 3 breathing treatments before they were satisfied that her breathing was where it should be. And I overheard a nurse in the hallway say, "That's one sick little girl." And they diagnosed pneumonia that night. So that quickly, that's how that happened, and I stayed by her crib that night and listened to her breathing. But I think that I speak for all of you, and working mothers often feel like we need to be in 2 places at once. And we feel like every day we have to make choices about who can we least afford to disappoint at this moment? Who needs us the most at this moment in time? And it's not easy. So the problem that Lean In and Sheryl Sandberg is seeking to address is the fact that despite the fact that women have been in the workplace for so long, a very small percentage have broken into those roles of running government and filling the seats of our legislative bodies and running Fortune 500 companies. And part of this is apparently due to what some have called a motherhood penalty, because when you look at mothers versus fathers, mothers are less likely to get hired, they're less likely to get promoted, and it's not really a male-female thing, because there's data to show that women without children compete favorably against men. They're more likely to get hired in this tough economy. Women did very well if they didn't have the hindrance of children. So her suggestion is that we need to lean into our careers and break through those barriers. And she also suggests, as does a number of the other writers that I saw, that we won't achieve what we need for women in the workplace and family-friendly policies until we have 50-50 equity at the top of organizations. And I question whether that's true. I don't know how many of you read anything about the controversy of Marissa Mayer when she took over the helm of Yahoo as CEO. She immediately canceled the policy that allowed their employees to work remotely. She took a 2-week maternity leave, which she said she worked all through, and then created a nursery to bring her baby to work. Did nothing to help employees achieve that family-friendly balance that we need, but took care of herself. I want to say that if it hadn't been for Ron's willingness to have flexible policies and hire, my dear colleague Marcia Copy to cover for me when I was on maternity leave with our youngest son, and see me run out the door for every school play and soccer game and orthodontist appointment, I could not have achieved the balance that I have in my life. And Bill Gunner, my first employer, is here, and I want to say that while I've had great female mentors and Ann Wainwright and Jill Chamberlain, I also had great male mentors who allowed me to succeed as a woman, never made me feel held back. So I don't think that we can wait until some moment in time when women have half the seats of power to change the workplace. I feel like it's incumbent on men and women in leadership positions to look at how to create family-friendly policies that support our families and allow the talent that's being left on the sidelines in women to take their seat at the table. I believe that these changes will be led by small businesses where more than 50% of Americans work. I think the transformation will occur on Main Street, not Wall Street, and it'll begin with the people in this room. I was interested and kind of scared to see the Time magazine cover recently that talked about the fastest growing demographic in our country is child-free couples. It's not childless, which suggests that they want children. It's child-free. They're choosing to be free from children. The U.S. birth rate is at the lowest point in U.S. history, even lower than the Great Depression. 1 in 5 Americans are finishing their childbearing years without kids, compared to 1 in 10 in the 1970s. I think a growing number of women are figuring out that work-life balance is difficult business, and we don't do enough to support that. According to a Pew Research Center study, 40% of working mothers say they always feel rushed. That's compared to 25% of working fathers or the general population. So who reaches the top? It's interesting that every male Supreme Court justice has a family, and yet 2 of the 3 female Supreme Court justices are single with no children, and the third began her career as a judge when her youngest child was grown. Condoleezza Rice, our first national security advisor, is also the only one not to have a family. In contrast, many women at the top of power find that the pressures are too great to sustain it for too long. Michelle Flournoy stepped down as Undersecretary of Defense after 3 years. Karen Hughes left her post with George W. Bush after a year and a half, and Mary Madeline left after 2 years with Bush Cheney. In a very thoughtful piece, and by the way, on our website, I prepared a reading list. If you'd like to read more about any of these topics or read the supporting background, I have links to all of them, and you can read them for yourself. But in what was really a great piece in Atlantic Magazine about a year ago, Anne Marie Slaughter wrote a piece called "Why Women Still Can't Have It All." She left her dream job in the State Department to return to Princeton to be a professor, a job that gave her more flexibility. And she did it because one of her teenage sons was unraveling, and she felt the need as a mother to be closer to him and to get his life on track. And that's despite having a very supportive husband who was raising those kids kind of single-handedly during the week while she was gone. You know, the point is that we don't just need flexibility for I'm running out of time? No, I'm fine. Thank you. We don't just need flexibility while our kids are in diapers. Teenagers need as much time, sometimes more time than toddlers, and life is often unpredictable. You may think you can perfectly plan and have your children together and get that early childhood time done so you can lean into your career, only to find an unexpected baby comes along later in life, or a child with a disability, or a parent with early onset Alzheimer's. You saw it in my Brady Bunch grid earlier, my mother's phase, and she was there because Matt and I could not have made our careers work all this time if she hadn't been a part of our lives and watched the kids so many of the times that they were sick, and been a volunteer at school and just been an extension of us. But she's got memory loss now, and I need to be there for her. So our equations continue to change as women, and without flexibility, we can't make it work. Oh, come on, clicker. Christian, you might have to help me.
Exactly.
You got it.
You got it.
Oh, good. Okay, so I don't want to be all doom and gloom, because I do feel like I have everything that I wanted in life. When I had the chance to put together a big family, that was a childhood dream, to have a big family and to have a career that's fulfilling, where I feel like I've accomplished a lot. So I think there are some specific takeaways that really make it work. First, I think it's important that you decide what's important to you. You decide what you want. For me, eating dinner together at night was really important to me. And so one piece of advice I'll leave you with is invest in a crock pot. Best thing you can do. But choose your career carefully and know what the trade-offs are. I have a job that lets me work from home when I have a sick child. And I have a very clear memory of having a child burning up with a stomach bug, sitting in a chair on a conference call with the computer open, and knowing when he was getting ready to throw up so that I could lean forward and let him hit the garbage can with that. Our daughter, who's about to finish at the University of Florida and go to physical therapy school, will not, have that luxury. She's got to be there to do her job. On the other hand, when her day is over, her day will be over. Whereas many of us, I know, bring our work home, and it's hard to find boundaries of when the workday actually ends. Secondly, I'd say the change is also going to come when the talent pool that is women negotiate a deal that works for themselves. And I do agree with Sheryl Sandberg that women need to be more confident, and they need to speak up more, and they need to negotiate terms that are family friendly. And one way to make that work is to make it work for your employer, not just for yourself. So figuring out how to make that work on both sides of the equation. Enlist a village. It's taken a village to raise the Ubben children. Thank you to all of you who've given them rides over the years. I see many of you out there. But it is having a husband who participates and cooperates and shares the load. It is having very often parents who help us. It is having quality child care providers that we have confidence in. Recognize that you can't do everything and cut yourself some slack. There was a book and then a movie out a couple of years ago called I Don't Know How She Does It. And there's a wonderful scene at the beginning of that book where the woman who has a high-powered career just has returned from a transatlantic business trip. She's standing in her kitchen at 1:30 in the morning, and she's distressing the top of pies that are store-bought to make them look homemade so that she can send them to school with her child the next day without feeling guilty that she, has this creation that, is less than it should have been. Also, I think it's important for women to come to terms with the fact that if we're going to share the load with our spouse, they're not going to do everything the way we would do it. You have to give up control. My husband couldn't be here because he's traveling for business all week, but I did ask his permission to tell this story, which is one of our favorite family stories. I was leaving for the airport for a business trip when our daughter Caroline was in first grade, and she came running out saying, "Mom, it's snack day. I need to have snack for my class." And I said, "I'm getting on an airplane. I can't solve this problem. Go talk to your father." And that day, he solved the problem by sending her to school with a whole watermelon. So, at the end of the day, the teacher, and you have to know that Caroline was a very eager to please child, the teacher pulled her aside and said, "Tell your parents not ever to send a watermelon to school again." Matt said I had to tell you that he grew up in Panama, where this is not uncommon to just but I would never have thought to do this because I would have had to cut the watermelon and put it in Ziplocs and send her with wet wipes, and it would be too much trouble. But you gotta let things happen according to other people's standards sometimes. And finally, and this is a really key point, build a supportive culture in the place where you work. We women can do so much by having each other's backs and covering for each other when a colleague needs to step out to do something for their families. Takeaways for employers. First of all, I would say embrace flexibility as a way to preserve talent. We've heard that there is a talent gap, that we need talented professionals to provide the economic growth that we are looking for. And women have that. We have had more women graduate from college in the last 3 decades than men. We have highly educated, highly talented women who are seeing no choice but an all or nothing. So whether it's working from home, whether it's part-time work, there are, again, the Pew Research Center, which has done fabulous research on work-life balance, has found in every survey that working mothers say that they would prefer meaningful part-time work if they could find it. And that's going to require creative compensation. It may not be paying someone for hourly work. It may be paying on a project fee. It may be putting someone on a monthly retainer for a reasonable amount of work. But I think I'd love to see an outgrowth of today to be a continuing conversation about how to make flexibility work in the workplace, both for the employer and for the employee. Okay, finally, for employers, putting limits on technology. Technology is the key to flexibility. It's what makes all of this work, but at the same time, we run the great risk that the workday never ends. And I had so much material on this topic, I had to leave it for another day, for another speech, but there's a lot of evidence that we are suffering the physical and psychological effects of never, ever disconnecting. And this is also having an effect on our children. And I thought about FSU's First Words project when I read a piece by a linguist who worries that babies who are raised with caregivers who are constantly on smartphones are not engaging in the kind of babble and conversational practice that babies need to acquire language properly. And I know my colleague Alia always says that her daughter, when she gets home, her 4-year-old daughter, says, "Put the phone away, mommy," because clients are still calling and children want our attention. But we don't want to have our child someday say that what they want to be when they grow up is a client. So finally, as a society, I think there are some takeaways too. And the first one is that it may sound like a cliche, but children really are our future. They are not a nuisance. They are not a personal selfish indulgence. If our children turn out well, 100 societal problems will go away. And so it's in all of our best interest to make sure that they turn out well. I think getting behind quality childcare and quality pre-K for everyone is a cause that we should lean into. And I think we should start thinking outside the box about how to structure the world so that it supports women balancing the things that they shoulder in their lives. Like here's a radical solution. What if we aligned the work day and the school day? And what if we had more on-site activities after school? That's not so crazy that we couldn't create an environment like that. In closing, I just want to say that Ron often says that he admires the fact that I never miss anything in my children's lives, and I'm sure it seems that way to him because I'm always running out to something. But let me say that, you have to make trade-offs, and there are lots of things that I've missed. There's an age in your child's life where they want nothing more than for you to be the classroom mom. And, I couldn't quite make that work. Or they wanted you to be waiting at the mommy tree. I think they still call it that at Kate Sullivan, to walk them home after school instead of, going to after school. But for all the things I didn't get to do, I feel like I did the things that were most important, and it worked. It has worked for the kids and for Matt and me. I'm proud of the things I've accomplished in my career, and looking back and preparing for this speech, I'm most proud of the things I've gotten to do that have helped children, like helping to pass the voluntary pre-K amendment and promoting adoption, promoting child abuse awareness. But none of that would be very satisfying if I felt like I short-sheeted my kids to do it. So the balance was everything to me. On the top 5 list of regrets that people have when they're dying, the number 2 regret is that I wish I didn't work so hard. But the number 1 regret is I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So in closing, let me say, lean into the life that you want, and maybe we can make this world a better place.